Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make this pop can cozy. This is a super simple crochet project working in the round to create this little cozy for pop cans. You can also use it for water bottles. However, the water bottles tend to be a little bit narrower, so this won't fit as snugly as if you use it on a pop can. We're also going to create this little flower applique and sew that right on so you have a cute pop can cozy with a cute applique. For this project you will need Lily Sugar and Cream cotton yarn, and this is a 4-weight cotton yarn. You can use any cotton yarn that's a 4-weight, doesn't have to be the Lily Sugar and Cream, but this is what I've used for the tutorial and my project. I have it in this, I think this is Sea Breeze. So Sea Breeze, and then this dark pink for the flower. But again, you can make yours any color you want. And a 4mm crochet hook. You'll also need a pair of scissors and a yarn needle as usual. And if you are uncomfortable working in the round, keeping track of that first stitch, I highly recommend using a stitch marker to mark that first stitch so you know where to slip stitch to join each round. To start, we're going to work in a magic ring. So create a magic ring, chain 1, and we're going to want 8 single crochets in that magic ring. Once you have your 8 single crochets, pull your magic ring closed and slip stitch to that first single crochet to join this round. You should have 8 stitches around your ring. For round 2, we're going to chain 1. We're going to work a single crochet right back into that same stitch. And we're going to work 2 single crochets into every stitch all the way around. At the end of this round, you'll have 16 total stitches. When you're back around, you'll have a false stitch here. You want to work into the top of that single crochet that you did to start the round. And that one can be a little bit tricky to work into, but there's our false stitch. There's our second single crochet, so it's right here that you want to work into. And you're just going to slip stitch to join. And you'll have 16 total stitches all the way around. For the next round, we're going to chain 1. We are going to work 2 single crochets right back into that same spot that we just chained out of, that we joined with. Into the next, we're going to work a single crochet. Into the next, we're going to work 2 single crochets. Into the next, a single crochet. Into the next, 2 single crochets. And into the next, a single crochet. And you're going to repeat this 2 1 2 1 2 1 pattern all the way around. You should have 24 total stitches at the end of this round. Working my 2 single crochets into that last stitch, skip over that false stitch, find that first single crochet that we did to start in. If you find that it's too hard to get into that stitch, you can use that false stitch and put a single crochet into it and ignore that stitch and then slip stitch to the top of that next stitch. Always make sure you count your stitches as you're working. It is really easy to get an increase pattern to not come out right, especially with that join part at the end. So I always double check, triple check sometimes, and count my stitches around to make sure that I have increased evenly and that my stitch count is on track. Now this next row is super easy. We're going to chain one. We're going to single crochet right back into that same space, and we're going to work a single crochet into every stitch all the way around. I've worked a single crochet into every stitch. I'm back at the beginning. I am going to skip that false stitch and just slip stitch to the top of my first single crochet there, my chain one. Now you might notice that it kind of starts to curl up. That's because we did not do an increase. That's okay. I'm going to chain one, work a single crochet right back into that same stitch, and now we're going to work a single crochet in the back loops only. So you can, if you turn your work just up slightly so you can see those stitches, you've got a front loop here and then a back loop in the back. We're working all into the back loops, ignoring those front loops. So normally you would go through both like this and make your stitch. In a back loop only stitch, we're going to split those two loops, those part of the stitch, in half and just work in the back half, bring up our loop, and single crochet. Into the next stitch, the same thing, split that stitch, only working up through the back loop. And you're going to do this all the way around. So just one single crochet into the back loop only of every stitch all the way around. And you will still have 24 stitches at the end of this round. Alright, I'm back around. I'm going to skip my false stitch there and slip stitch through both loops on that first stitch to join. At this point, we're going to start working the pattern to create the sides for our can cozy. I like to turn my work inside out, so I have this part, which is my inside part, on the inside. So right up to this point, it's kind of been like this. If we keep going, we would work sort of outside facing us. It's kind of a personal preference. I always like to fold my work back around so I'm working and I can see how the outside is looking as I'm working. And then my inside is this one. Here's my tail, sort of the wrong side of my work. For this round, we're going to chain one. I'm going to work a single crochet into the same stitch, chain one, single crochet into the same stitch. So essentially we are making a single crochet V-stitch. Single crochet, chain one, single crochet. We're going to skip the next stitch. Into the next, we're going to work a single crochet V-stitch. Single crochet, chain one, single crochet into the same stitch. Skip the next, single crochet V-stitch in the next. Single crochet, chain one, single crochet. Skip the next, V-stitch into the next, single crochet, chain one, single crochet into the same. Skip the next stitch, V-stitch into the next. So you're going to work a single crochet V-stitch and then skip one, single crochet V-stitch, skip one, all the way around. Coming up, I have 3 stitches left, and there is where my starting row was. Now, I forgot to mention this earlier, if you have trouble keeping track of rounds, I highly recommend putting a stitch marker into the chain ones that you do to start every round, because sometimes as you're working this, there won't be that obvious increase the further along we get into this pattern. So here I am, I have 3 stitches left. I just worked a V-stitch. I'm going to skip that stitch, work a V-stitch into the next. So single crochet, chain 1, single crochet, skip that one. There's our false stitch. You should have your stitch marker in a chain 1 right around here. Now again, it doesn't have to be precise, so you can just sort of slip stitch to the easiest chain or stitch that is right there after you skip that false stitch. For the next round, and this is the repeating round for the rest of the project, we're going to chain 1, and here's where I say just stick that stitch marker in that chain 1 that you did so you know where you started. We are going to work into the chain 1 spaces of those V-stitches. So the first one is a little bit tricky because those chain 1s and single crochets are a very tight stitch. So you want to find the V-stitch that you've created and just work in between that V-stitch, because that will be your chain 1. So single crochet, chain 1, single crochet. So we're still working V-stitches. We're going to skip that one and find our next. There's those 2 stitches right there, which means my chain 1 is right in between them, and work a V-stitch. Skip a stitch, find that next chain 1 space, and work a V-stitch. So you're just working in the chain 1 spaces, and the stitch does not change. You're just working that single crochet V-stitch. Find your next space and V-stitch. So continue to work this all the way around, and I will show you once again how to join the round, and then you'll be off on your own creating those sides. Alright, I'm on my last V-stitch. Here is where, if I used a stitch marker, my stitch marker would be, here is my first chain space right here. We need to join first. So I'm going to join with a slip stitch, and again, it's much easier to tell that beginning stitch if you have used a stitch marker. And just slip stitch to that first, always chain 1, and work right into the next chain 1 space, and just keep working those single crochet V-stitches into every chain 1 space all the way around. Join your rounds, chain 1, and continue. So keep working this single crochet V-stitch pattern for a total of 21 rounds, or until you get the height that you want. You can just continue working this in the round for as many or as few rounds as you want to create your cozy. I'm going to work a total of 21 rounds, including the starting magic ring round and working up, and then I will show you how to fasten off the project, and we'll make our little flower applique. Once you have worked that final round, you can slip stitch to join like you have been doing for each and every round, and then you can fasten off. Now I recommend sort of stretching this out a little bit. I also recommend, if you have a pop can available, to put it in as you're working every so often, just to stretch it out. You do want a snug fit. However, the first few times that you put your pop can into this cozy, it is going to be really snug, and it might take just a little bit to work it up around that pop can. For the flower, we're also going to start with a magic ring, chain 1, and you want 10 single crochets. So I'm going to work my 10 single crochets into that ring. Once you have 10 single crochets, go ahead and pull that tail to close up that ring, and we're going to slip stitch to join. We're going to chain 3, and we're going to work a puff right away. So a puff is a yarn over. I'm going to put my hook into that same stitch that we just chained out of, pull up a loop, yarn over, put my hook in the same chain, pull up a loop. You want a total of 9 loops on your hook. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do it again. 7. One more time. Now I have 9 loops on my hook. I'm going to yarn over and pull back through all 9 loops. And you want to make these loose so you don't have trouble pulling back. Chain 3 and slip stitch right back in that same space. We're going to slip stitch in the next 2 stitches. So make sure that you don't miss a stitch, because when you make these puffs, they sort of spread out and they hide the stitches right next to them. So you want to slip stitch in the next 2. We're going to work another puff petal. So chain 3, yarn over, put your hook in that same stitch, draw up a loop, draw up a loop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. One more time. Yarn over, pull back through everything. And this is tricky, especially with cotton yarn, I find, because it splits a little bit easier depending on the brand. And it's a little bit tougher to work. It's not quite so slick as acrylic. Chain 3 and slip stitch right back in that same stitch, our second puff flower. Slip stitch into the next 2. So there's 1 and 2, and I'm going to work a puff. So chain 3, and yarn over, pull back through everything, chain 3 and slip stitch. So we have 3 petals. We're going to work 2 more petals for a total of 5 petals. We're going to slip stitch into the next 2 stitches. And again, sometimes those ones right next to our puff petal can get hidden, so make sure that you're working a slip stitch into it. Chain 3, work a puff. Yarn over and pull back through everything. chain 3, and slip stitch into the same stitch. Slip stitch in the next 2. Work a puff. Yarn over, pull back through everything. Chain 3. Slip stitch back in that same stitch. Slip stitch into the next, and slip stitch right back into that stitch that's right next to your first puff, and you can fasten off. And we've got our flower. I like to puff up those petals a little bit. I'm going to cinch this up tight. So I like to leave a long tail so I can use it to sew my flower on. Alright, to sew the flower on, I'm going to thread my needle here. And I've already taken care of the center end, just because I wanted to get it out of the way. So what I'm going to do is, for this one, since this was my longer strand, I am just going to weave this tail closer to that center. And now I'm in the center. So wherever you want your applique to lie on your cozy, just set it down and then go through one of those spaces. And hopefully you guys can see this on the camera. It's going to be a little bit tricky to show. So I've gone through that one. I'm holding this applique on with my right hand. And I don't want to go right back through that same spot. I want to just go in right, either to the right or above. That one might work a little better. And I want to come up through the middle of my flower. And now I'm going to go towards any one of these petals. I can put my hook, or I can put my needle in, and I want to go really close to where I came up out of, just to keep this nice and uniform on the back or on the inside. I'm going to go back through that same one down here. And just gently, because you want to try to get into that center space as much as possible. Since that's the center of your applique, you can kind of wiggle it around, see where it might need a little securing. Turn it over. And of course my petal gets stuck. Make sure that doesn't happen. There we go. And I'm feeling like it's pretty secure. I don't want to secure all of these petals. I like them kind of floating there. However, if you want to go ahead and sew around each petal so it lies more flat against the cozy, go ahead. For me, I am just going to now weave in this tail in the back a few times, just to secure that. I know it's a little bit hard to see on camera working like this. And there we are. Go one more time. Just weaving in as I normally would. I'm going to cut the yarn. And now I've got my can cozy with a nice flower applique. Alright, so you can see that this one that I did looks a little bit bigger. Now it's the same pattern, however I have had a can in here to kind of stretch it out. This one is the one that we just did on the tutorial, and you can see it looks a lot smaller. So you just have to play with it, stretch it out. It will stretch out. Cotton will stretch a little bit, and it also keeps its form, if that makes any sense at all. So the first time you put your can in, it's going to be a little bit tight. It's supposed to be. And there we are. A cute little can cozy. This is perfect also for taking in the car and setting in the cup holder, especially if it's, I don't know, sort of muggy out and your can is a little sweaty. And like I said, if you wanted to increase these rows and go a little bit taller, feel free to. This pattern is a little bit customizable that way. I hope you enjoyed this pop can cozy crochet tutorial. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, happy crocheting everyone. Bye!